2 Kings chapter 23. The institution of the covenant. Then the king summoned all the leaders of Yehuda and Jerusalem, and they assembled with him. The king went up to the house of Adonai with all the men of Yehuda, all those living in Jerusalem, the Kohanim, the prophets and all the people, both small and great, and he read in their hearing everything written in the scroll of the covenant that had been found in the house of Adonai. The king stood on the platform and made a covenant in the presence of Adonai to live following Adonai, observing his mitzvah, instructions and regulations wholeheartedly and with all his being, so as to confirm the words of the covenant written in this scroll. All the people stood, pledging themselves to keep the covenant. The reforms because of the covenant. Then the king ordered Hilkiah the Kohen Haggadol, the Kohanim of the second rank and the doorkeepers to remove from the sanctuary of Adonai all the articles that had been made for Baal, for the Asherah and for the entire army of heaven, and he burned them up outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron and carried their ashes to Beit El. He deposed the idolatrous priests the kings of Yehuda had ordained to offer on the high places by the cities of Yehuda and in the places surrounding Jerusalem. He also deposed those who offered to Baal, the sun, the moon, the constellations and the whole army of heaven. He took the Asherah from the house of Adonai to Wadi Kidron outside Jerusalem and burned it in Wadi Kidron, stamped the ashes to powder and threw the powder onto the burial ground for the common people. He smashed the houses of the cult prostitutes that were in the house of Adonai, where the women also wove garments for the Asherah. He removed the Kohanim from the cities of Yehuda. Then, from Jiva to Beersheba, he desecrated the high places where the Kohanim had been making offerings. He also smashed the high places of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Yehoshua the governor of the city, on the left as one enters the city. But although the Kohanim who had been at the high places did not come up to the altar of Adonai in Jerusalem, nevertheless they did share matzah with their kinsmen. He desecrated the Tophet fire pit in the Ben Hinnom valley, so that no one could cause his son or daughter to pass through fire, as a sacrifice, to Molech. He confiscated the horses which the kings of Yehuda had given to the sun, at the entrance to the house of Adonai near the room of the officer and Tan Melech, in the side courtyard, and he burned up the chariots of the sun. The king smashed the altars on the roof of the upper room of Achaz, which the kings of Yehuda had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courtyards of the house of Adonai. He broke them into pieces and threw the rubble into Wadi Kidron. The king desecrated the high places facing Jerusalem south of the Mount of Destruction, which Shlomo the king of Israel had built for Ashtoreth the abomination of the Zidonium, Chemosh the abomination of Moab and Milcom the abomination of the people of Ammon. He smashed the standing stones, chopped down the sacred poles and covered their remains with human bones. He smashed the altar that was at Beit El in the high place made by Yaravam the son of Nevat, who caused Israel to sin. Yes, he smashed that altar in the high place. He burned the high place, stamped the ashes to powder, and burned up the Asherah. Then, as Josiah was turning around, he noticed the burial caves that were there on the mountain. So he sent and had the bones taken out of the burial caves and burned them on the altar, thus desecrating it, in keeping with the word of Adonai which the man of God had proclaimed, foretelling that these things would happen. Then he asked, "This monument here that I'm looking at, what is it?" The men of the city told him, "It marks the burial cave of the man of God who came from Yehuda and foretold the very things you have done to the altar of Beit El." He replied, "Let him be. No one is to move his bones." So they left his bones undisturbed, along with the bones of the prophet who had come from Shamron. Josiah also removed all the shrines of the high places in the cities of Shamron, which the kings of Israel had made in order to provoke Adonai to anger, and treated them the same as in Beit El. He put to death all the priests of those high places on the altars there, then burned human bones on them. Finally he returned to Jerusalem. The king issued this order to all the people: "Observe Pesach to Adonai your God, as written in this scroll of the covenant." For Pesach had not been so observed since the days when the judges ruled Israel, not during the times of any of the kings of Israel or of the kings of Yehuda. But in the 18th year of King Josiah this Pesach was observed to Adonai in Jerusalem. Josiah got rid of the mediums and the people using spirit guides, as well as the household gods, the idols and all the disgusting things spotted anywhere in Yehuda and Jerusalem. He did this in order to establish the words of the Torah written in the scroll Hilkiah the Kohen had found in the house of Adonai. No previous king was like him, because he turned to Adonai with all his heart, with all his being and with all his power, in accordance with all the Torah of Moshe. Nor did any king like him arise afterwards. Nevertheless, Adonai did not turn away from his fiercely raging, furious anger that burned against Yehuda because of all the things Manasseh had done to provoke him. Adonai said, "Just as I removed Israel, I will also remove Yehuda out of my sight, and I will reject this city, which I chose, Jerusalem, and the house concerning which I said, my name will be there." The state of the nations under Josiah. Other activities of Josiah and all his accomplishments are recorded in the annals of the kings of Yehuda. During his time, Pharaoh and king of Egypt went up toward the Euphrates River to attack the king of Ashur. King Josiah went out to oppose him, but at Megiddo, Pharaoh spotted Josiah and killed him. The death of Josiah. His servants carried his dead body from Megiddo to Jerusalem in a chariot and buried him in his own tomb. The people of the land took Jehoahaz the son of Josiah, anointed him, and made him king in his father's place. The reign of Jehoahaz over Judah. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began his reign, and he ruled for 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Yirmiyahu from Livna. He did what was evil from Adonai's perspective, following the example of everything his ancestors had done. Pharaoh and imprisoned him at Rivlah in the land of Hamad, so that he would not be able to rule in Jerusalem. He also imposed a penalty on the land of 3¼ tons of silver and 66 pounds of gold. Then Pharaoh and made Eliakim the son of Josiah king in place of Josiah his father and changed his name to Joachim. He also carried Jehoahaz off to Egypt, where he died. The reign of Jehoiakim over Judah. Joachim remitted the silver and gold to Pharaoh, but in order to pay the money Pharaoh demanded, he had to levy a tax on the land. He taxed the people of the land, each according to his means, to pay the silver and gold to Pharaoh and Joachim was 25 years old when he began his reign, and he ruled for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zevudah, the daughter of Pedaiah, from Rumah. He did what was evil from the perspective of Adonai, following the example of everything his ancestors had done.